Okay, welcome to hour 3 of Living Energy Day, and I'm very happy to have Thornton Streeter, Dr. Thornton Streeter with us, who I met several years ago at a bioenergetic conference, and he's doing all kind of amazing things and just has a worldwide breadth of knowledge. Literally, he's in India half the year, and I think he's in the US about half the year, and he's in points in between the rest of the time. So Thornton is the head of the Center for Biofield Sciences, and they just moved to a new location he'll probably tell us about. But Thornton, take it away. Tell us a little bit what you're doing.
Oh, that's so wonderful of you, Mike, and it's such a pleasure to speak with our global family, both from the the therapeutic perspective some of my colleagues are addressing today, and from the scientific perspective. How have things evolved? I like to simplify things down to the kind of picture that we're stuck in at the moment, a kind of dualistic perspective. They talk about medicine and alternative medicine, and we're all as energy healers in the alternative bracket. But what is this concept of duality that we're faced? Well, in quantum physics, we learned that a particle or photon rather can dance, can shimmy, can vibrate between a particle state and a wave state. When we try and observe it as a particle, it becomes a wave. There's a morphing going on, a flipping from one to the other instantaneously. And so what we've effectively got is we've got particle state of matter, and we've got wave state of matter. And the same is true for medicine. We have particle medicine, the biophysics-based, biochemistry-based medicine that we normally experience in the clinics and hospitals. But we also have wave-based medicine. It's the same thing, but in that other moment. And wave-based medicine is all the energy therapies and natural healing techniques that are based on vibrations. And of course, when something's in a wave state, the communication is total. There's no side effects. Particle state medicine has side effects, and involves heavy lifting and operations, whereas wave state medicine, the medicine that we're presenting today at this conference, allows us to be a lot more gentle and address exactly the same thing, but when it's in a different state. And of course, we've not understood this in physics until very recently. So the template for medicine to grow wasn't well understood. It's only now that we can kind of piece it all together and see and understand exactly what we're dealing with. So that's what I, really perhaps is the ultimate delineation between our two medicines. And of course, as we've come to learn and understand this, we can now, for the first time ever, really look to integration. And that means kind of taking the best of everything and presenting it to our communities as a solution-based healthcare, something that's really sustainable, rather than, the situations we see now where I think the biggest cause for bankruptcy in the world are medical bills. These two worlds really should be merging and serving the community much better than they are now. So, Mike, I'm really hoping that my little slides will open as they're supposed to. I'm going to share my screen right now, and I hope that everything behaves itself according to plan. I've got my slide open, and you're just going to very kindly tell me whether you can see me or a picture of my slide.
I see you right now. Do you see where to share the screen down at the bottom?
Well, yeah, I did that. So it should be now kind of, that on there, yeah, share screen now.
Okay, it's starting to share. And there we go, yep. And for those people who are watching, if the slide doesn't fit, you should be able to move your mouse and move it around. So that's for our audience's sake, just to notice that. I can move that around if I can't see everything.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, now the sun's coming up and I'm starting to sort of glow, like I can show you. It's better to get the attention on the slide. So that's brilliant. Well, as you can see, I've I've chosen to address the subject of this integration of healthcare, but very much bringing in all these components from energy medicine, which have been poo-pooed, and now there's really no chance for that to occur anymore. We really need to get on with this important process of integration. So I'm just going to advance one slide. Yeah, there we go. Just, ooh, excuse me. Just to speak about the hats that I wear in my role in this. One of them, as you can see, the Foundation for Alternative and Integrative Medicine. That's a fabulous organization based in America and brilliantly supported. And I dutifully serve them as their Asian correspondent, if you like. You can also see the logo for the United Nations, because I am a card-carrying UN member who serves them as a special representative from the NGO side of NGOs, non-governmental organizations. So I serve an NGO, which in turn has sent me to the United Nations as their representative. The Energy Medicine Exchange is a Facebook group. I hope this is the one way that, you know, we really can communicate with each other. I hope that if you're inspired by energy healing and by this talk, that you'll join us at the Facebook group. And then, of course, you mentioned very briefly earlier the Center for Biofield Science, Mike, which is that group I've been serving for the last 20 years, doing clinical research into the subtle energies and the human energy field we now call the biofield. And as you very kindly mentioned, Mike, we have just moved into our own building. We're so thrilled about it, away from all the noise and EMFs, in a wonderful, old, beautiful place. And we're having our first training course there on the 7th of Jan. This is in a place called Panjim. It's a sort of new capital of Goa, new capital of yoga, I should say, Goa yoga. So many different yoga shalas are there, and so many different trainers come from all over the world to learn yoga. So it's lovely to be in a community like that.
Hey, Thornton, Thornton, real quick, you've got a little screen open that's covering part of your slides. It looks like it's something about the Facebook profile. Do you see that?
Yeah, well, actually, you know what that is? That's the Zoom thing from your... Yeah, I mean, that's... I have moved it off to the corner, but it does like to be...
Yeah, that's perfect. Now it's behind the video, so we don't see it all. So perfect. So sorry to interrupt there.
No problem, not at all. And I must get on, really, because I do want to touch so many things this morning, crikey, or evening, you know, wherever we all are. But this image, I think, does clearly show everything from my youth, in the sense that I was fascinated by all these amazing images of saintly people in church and, you know, in various places. And I was wondering why, you know, while I was learning biology and medicine, that, you know, it wasn't being discussed. You know, what were these anatomical features that we're missing? And, you know, growing up in Christian faith, that was my influence. But of course, all sorts of things can happen, can't they? But this is not exclusive to any one faith. All of the different traditions represent this biofield, this subtle energy, this atmosphere that I now talk around the body. And it's not just in stone, brass, wood, you know, every medium the artist can work with. They will depict certain features of these energies, subtle energies. And as you dig deeper, of course, these maps become more detailed. And in this case, we can see an old color picture of a yogi in the lotus position, and all the tiny, thin nadi channels and the chakras are clearly delineated. And in the old days, the rishis didn't have oscilloscopes or snazzy equipment like we do, so they would show in their graphics what they were meaning. And that's why the chakras, or these colorful flowers down the center of the person you're looking at, have increasing number of petals, because it's increasing the wavelength of the range that they're each responsible for. And understanding this language is very important because it helps us to, get all the spec, if you like, before we do our pioneering research. I mentioned the word atmosphere. I'm very comfortable with this analogy of, the Earth has an atmosphere. We're already aware of this statement, as above, so below. And here it is in a little bit, more focus, where the atmosphere of the planet has these wonderful gradations and layers. And the boundaries of these layers really do act like boundaries. The cosmic frequencies can bounce off and avoid harming living beings on Earth. And this is an evolved arrangement, the Earth's atmosphere. And now the journey really is to avoid these naysayers who've said this subject is for pseudoscience, but actually to now explore and, all areas, all universities around the world, the human atmosphere. And we do have so many wonderful building blocks. Here's some great paintings from a fellow called Alex Gray in America, who has, in a series of them, I've only got a couple of them here, but in a series of them in a book called Sacred Mirrors, we can actually see not just the physical body, but also the energy body, the biofields, and they come together to be the human being. When I think of a body, I think of a dead body. A human being isn't just a body, they have so much more to them. And it's understanding this more that allows us to serve our communities better in a more appropriate way. And that's what excites me. Well, anyway, my interest and speciality, if you like, Mike, is imaging. And as you can see here from these oranges, there's lots of different ways you can take the picture of an orange. The two corners, top right and top left, are modern medical devices which allow us to peer in the CT and the MRIs. And the bottom picture is an energy picture of the orange. And on a very fundamental level, this is really what we eat. We eat light. I eat an orange, I pee out the liquid, I crap out the solid, but it's the light that's my real life force, my fuel. And of course, people who eat lots of processed foods, they don't get that. And I call those people kind of human doings. They kind of just go to work and get stuck in a traffic jam and do the shopping and get home and fall asleep, and they don't have much energy for thinking or bettering themselves or improving, optimizing. For that, you need this living life force, sunlight. The sun charges this orange tree with, the fruit, sucks all the living daylights out of it and creates these balls of fruit to protect those special seeds. Adam and Eve worked out that it's a good source of light. So we've been eating this stuff ever since. But this light is the very essence of our entire conference this day. This living energy, this pran, this life force. Now it's a big jump here to an image of the electromagnetic spectrum, but I just wanted to give you some insight. If you follow my mouse down here to the ultrasound region, there are more deaths recorded in the last 100 years from malpractice by medical professionals with the ultrasound than any war or act of terrorism. In other words, there's a few 100 million soldiers who've died in all the wars in the world, but at least 300 million girls, this is gendercide, are missing from the world's demographics because people don't want to have girls. Culturally, they're expensive. You've got to pay for the wedding. It's a very sinister reality, and of course it means that there are 300 million boys who will never find love. This is the elephant in the room, that modern medicine has been allowed to create these horrific scenarios. It's not a small thing, 300 million missing girls.
No, that's population of the U.S. basically. I mean, think about it. Yeah.
Well, and then they're not photocopiers, sonographs. These are things that are only operated by medical professionals. So if they're sexing babies in the womb and then aborting them because they don't have penises, then it's a very sinister scenario. And quite worrying, actually. I'm obviously very aware and appreciative of the benefits of having ultrasound for, you know, kidney stones and all kinds of other things. But, you know, this great big elephant sat there and nobody's talking about it, then we really need to get to know it so we can move forward. And in the same way, you know, if we look at the other side of the spectrum, where a lot of the modern medical devices are, saying I'm a little unstable, then for sure these devices, these technologies, you know, they need to be assessed for their impact, and at what price really are we doing this? That's why all our technologies that I'm working with are in the safe range of the visible spectrum, or the, you know, the thermal range. Thermal imaging, which we've used regularly, can identify breast cancer 6 years before mammography. 6 years.
Wow.
And yet it's not widely promoted, and mammography is, and yet mammography is proven to be cause of breast cancer. So this, to me, is another one of those elephants, and we realize we've got a whole herd of elephants in the room that need to be addressed. So moving on from that, you know, what is the science really that's behind all these healers today, and their confidence? You know, in the last few years, a much better understanding about biophotonic emissions has been engaged in the last, you know, around the world with different institutes, and we really are aware now that living systems emit light. And you can see in this picture of a hand here where the damaged fingertips of a heavy smoker, the actual biophotons are leaking out there. So we don't want to leak out our flame. If you imagine we're a candle and there are all these gradations of light, the flame itself stays with the body because we want to minimize the burn of wax. The life, you know, the 70 years we've got. But the gradations of light that around the candle are what allow us to see and, you know, get to know each other. And so there is a distinction which not many people had understood before, was this biophotons stay in the body in a healthy person, but the emanations and gradations of light define their well-being. We've been taking images of this for a very long time. I mean, this handprint is a camera I developed with a friend of mine called Nigel, Gary and Hutchins, where we actually put a video camera in between two glass plates so we could actually see through. And it means you can actually put your physical hand in an overlay to get a concept. Nigel has gone on to be a real champion in Britain of this type of technology, Keelian photography. As you can see here, you know, with the applications of experience, we can use the hand in the same way a palmist would read a hand to interpret somebody's well-being by the gaps, or the flushes, or these little dots can sometimes mean toxicity, different factors in the interpretation of each and everybody's hand. And because we all have unique prints, we can all tell a unique story. It's as if we're a diamond, actually, and with experience, you can read each and every facet, whether it's the ear for acupuncture, or the eye for iridology, or the hands. So many different ways we can read the body, the tongue, and of course they all have a counterplay in the energetic dimension. And that's something that we've really been very focused on trying to extrapolate this information. Here, a little bit complicated, is the first 3D Biofield picture we ever took. And it's of my colleague's hand, John Catchpole, programmer for Biofield Viewer. And you can actually see this red, like, mountain peak running up the meridian there on at least 2 of the fingers. So that's fabulous information for people who work with meridians and can monitor the progress of their treatment now live by observing the biophotonic activity of the meridians, or the chakras, whatever it is we're looking at. And back to this simple concept of this light which we eat. You know, we eat the apple, the light becomes our fuel. We eliminate this light, shines all the way through us. We have systems for eliminating solid waste in the bathroom, liquid. We can pee, we can spit, we can sweat. But, you know, heat, we just, you know, we can goosebumps when we're cold. The skin surface changes depending on whether we're exuding or embracing warmth. And then, of course, we have these tiny little acupuncture points, thousands of them all over the body, which are an elimination system for etheric toxins, what we call plasmic toxins. Solid waste out the rear, liquid waste out the front, and then these various different elemental, fierier, more different states of matter, if you like, have their own systems. And that's why we have a bioplasmic field, a toroidal bioplasmic field. And even the same as this apple. But what happens if I use a mobile phone and expose myself to EMFs? Very similar to what happens to this apple when I stick it in a microwave for a minute. And you can see how, on the very right of this picture, how that integrity of that biofield of that apple is depleted, diseased by exposure to EMFs. Mm-hmm. So this subject really of chakras and meridians and the anatomy of the biofield is blown out the water with current revelations. There's universal concurrence in all the different schools of the points and the chakras, and that's something that I find very inspiring. But they're not completely up to speed on the latest technological advances. Now, I have to say that this study was retracted recently, and I don't even know why, but I don't care whether it was retracted or not, because I know Joey Jones, and I know the thorough research that they did, and I'm sure it's much more a nefarious thing now he's died, that he can't speak for himself why they've pulled it. But definitely you must see what I'm showing here, that if I stimulate the visual cortex, graph image A at the top, a certain area of the brain lights up in a functional MRI. Whereas if I stimulate the vision point on the foot, believe it or not, the same area of the brain lights up. So it's an amazing thing that, you know, the Orientals worked thousands of years ago, these incredible associations, and now finally with state-of-the-art equipment we're able to prove they're right. But if you look at the middle of the image, what's so fascinating is you'll see that light, when I shine it in the eye, takes 1/4 of a second to reach the brain. And if I stimulate the toe, it happens in nanoseconds. In other words, the nervous system is like the old-fashioned copper wiring in the house, and the meridian system is a fiber optic superhighway. Now, we've only talked up till now of these meridians being energy channels, but clearly from science perspective, they're operating more like fiber optics. Yeah. So now we have to go find these fiber optics in the body. Now, this is an image of acupuncture points, but you'll realize that the terminology is different. This is actually from the Indian Vedic perspective, and they too understood acupuncture points. And this bringing together of all the traditions has been very much an important part of my work. You know, getting the acupuncturists talk about meridians and the Vedics to talk about chakras, and they're different. And actually, that's not true. They all talk about the same things in detail. And these marma points or acupoints can be visibly seen now. They can actually be illuminated. And so you can do a study with, this is a Russian machine, where you actually see all the acupuncture points when you expose your field to this device. Now, what I'm suggesting is that the meridians, the nadis, are not energy channels. They're actually physical vessels. They were just so tiny, we took us a while to find them. I mean, recently, a couple of Italian anatomists discovered a new tendon in the knee in the last 5 years. So, you know, that's quite a big thing, a tendon. You know, we're talking about vessels that are so small, you need to stain them, and you need to image them with very high-powered microscopes. I'm just going to dance through some of these slides, but you can see here where my mouse is, this is the capillary. We've got a diagram next door. This is the tiniest vessel in the human body known to date, the capillary, and the strand that I'm talking about is there inside it. So it isn't surprising that people have missed these things to date, but it is incredibly important how much these holistic, integrative, meridian-based therapies are getting a boost from this new level of understanding. That, yeah, they've been going on about this thing for years and years. They've all been called pseudoscientists and woo-woo, and now suddenly the latest scientific discovery is proving exactly what they said. And here is that fiber optic strand. It really does look like fiber optic, and it forms a spider's web within us. And of course, the traumas that your colleague was speaking to earlier, childhood traumas, can settle, can get caught in this web and cause disturbances if they're not digested. If you get a fly in your net and a spider, you've got to digest it. You can't just leave it hanging there, otherwise someone will come along and will walk into it. You know what I mean? You've got to get these things processed. And it's very definitive when you look at something like we are now, which is a meridian. It's a fiber optic type strand with an electron microscope. This seeing is believing. Meridians are real. We've got to rewrite medicine in favor of all the healers who are speaking today. That's fascinating to me. Now, taking the other side of the coin, you know, sort of Vedic perspective, and we look at the chakras, we realize that they too can be measured and studied and analyzed. And, you know, we've got some very sensitive technology. I'm going to go a little bit further or faster ahead now, but Valerie Hunt in the 70s did some amazing research revealing the chakra function, and even developed an imaging system which inspired me to develop the Biofield viewer. This is a Russian system. You know, we're still limited because we only have like a figurine. There isn't a sense that that's my field. This is a composite of all of my little fingerprint fields. You know, we strived for more. We wanted to see the biofield in real time, but we can't overlook this stuff. This allows us to do the kind of science we need to do, where we can study 100 people whose health is compromised, and we can study how their health improves, and we can see what the biofield's doing. And therefore it becomes predictive, because if I see someone's biofield is compromised and not optimized, and it displays a pattern similar to another kind of illness I've seen before, then for sure it's neighbors shouting. So there it is. Yeah, before and after in this case allows us, as I said, to do all that analysis, development, to prove modalities are real. Anyhow, Dantian's, well, this is an Oriental perspective of the thing that I'm addressing, the chakras. And of course, the organs of the body itself makes a field, the electromagnetic field of the heart. Mm-hmm. We measure these various different fields to, just excuse me 1 second,
Sure thing. Yeah, so this is a lot, you'll be hearing a lot about this during this event. We'll have talk about the assemblage point with Katharina Jansma later in the day. And so it's just a fascinating work that's going on in these areas. And Thornton's really at the forefront of a lot of this stuff that's going on. So, okay. Yeah, really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, well, let's move on. I mean, I am slightly limited by time.
Sure.
I've got to put my glasses on to see my screen, but there we go. It is getting terribly bright in here, but it is working. And this, of course, is that field in a dynamic sense. And there are three things. There's gravitational fields, mass. There's electromagnetic fields, which is charge. And there's torsion fields, which is spin. We've overlooked torsion fields and spin. And yet, clearly, modern medicine is going on that journey now as we begin to realize that human beings have a physical body, but they have this very dynamic field, well, all living systems do. But the point is that in a perfect field like this, it's perfect well-being. But if the field is not perfect, the weaknesses allow for other influences. Now, I just want to do a very quick dance into the chakras, Mike, because chakras are very much in the public eye right now, and people see them as kind of traffic lights. I've even heard recently that you can have your chakras removed, like tattoos. So that's something that really is bizarre, especially as you understand really what the chakras are. And I feel that that's what I need to do as a result of these kind of strange things, is really to share what the chakras are to me, having spent so many years studying them. So I want to take you on a little journey, and I've got the pencil, but I want you to imagine you have a pencil, and you're just putting a dot like on the piece of paper. That dot is the base chakra, the bindu. It's potential. It's also in the evolution of this process, the element earth. It's 1D, one dimension, okay? So that's the base chakra. We relate to fight or flight. It's a sort of running around, you know, you've got to go from either here or there, away or to something. But in the very first essence of being, 1D is nothing. It isn't even a piece, it's just a dot, yeah? And even what I'm describing to you might not make any sense until we get a few sentences in. Okay, so just bear with me. But 1D relates to the base chakra, and therefore any base chakra issues always relate to grounding, because the earth element is the point, the 1D point. And even in biofield science, if we have a C congestion in that base chakra, we know grounding is the solution. In fact, people won't heal in other areas until they're grounded. Okay, so 1D is a point. Now, I hope I've lost you so far, because I'm going to win you back right now. 1D is the point, but 2D, there's me. I'm a baby. I've just been born. I've got no idea what I am, but this 2D is my mother. It's like me, I'm this point, but you're my mum. You're my dad. You're my sister. You're my brother. I'm starting to get to know the other, yeah? The point becomes the line on the page. You know, if I go back, there's that point, and now I'm drawing all those wonderful lines out to meet the other. Yeah? I have no idea who I am. It's just the point going from A to B. Me to mom, me to dad, me to my sister, me to my granny, and so forth. And this is now 2-dimension, and it also explains how this second chakra, this 2D chakra, relates to relationships. The second chakra is all about relationships, because the very second, you know, the colleague earlier was speaking about childhood traumas. This is the first programming we're talking about. So the programming, the first mold of the jelly isn't right, then, you know, doesn't do it right. Okay, so now 3D is me, goes out to see my mother and my father, that's 2D, and then comes back onto myself again. So I am now aware that I sit here and I know you, my mum. I'm now aware that I know you, my dad. Now, this is the third chakra, and it's the chakra of the ego, the personality. Okay, so these lower 3 chakras that I'm describing help us navigate the lower 3 dimensions, what we call space. This room I'm sitting in is space. It's 3D, yeah? And it's based on 1D, 2D, and 3D becoming space. And in fact, if you look at my character here now, I can create a 3D physical thing in space, but we're all stuck here and frozen like these new apps, you know, the new Christmas apps, you know, like we're all standing here and there's no time. Right. The lower 3 chakras help us navigate this reality. The legs are in those chakras so we can run around. The real dynamic, the real life-giving moment is when the heart beats, because that's time. So we've got 3D space and time. The heart is time. The heart chakra is time. In the old days, we used to measure the heartbeat, and it was at 60 beats a minute. You know, Greeks first started measuring the heart rate. It's up to 90 now because we're all in a rush.
Yeah.
The reality is that our chakras are dimensional lenses to help us navigate this 3D space-time reality. And so when people say, hey, you know, I'm going to have my, you know, heart chakra removed and I'm, you know, I want a blue one, you know, they don't really know what the heck they're talking about. It's not something, you know, it's like you're either in it or you aren't. You can't be in it and then choose which color you want. It's not like that. So I just like, okay, that's fine. Now I need to share my insights, because clearly people think they're traffic lights that flash up and down. They're not. They're the anchors to this reality. Yeah?
Yeah.
So moving on, the lower 4 chakras deliver us the equipment to navigate space-time. Yeah? So what do the higher chakras do? The throat, the brow, and the crown, and beyond, what do they do? Well, I personally have studied distant healing. Okay, so this is the 4D time. I personally have studied distant healing. And what we come to realize with distant healing is that it operates beyond space and time. In other words, somebody's in America sending healing to our lab in India, and we're monitoring the progress of these clients, but it happens instantly. So, you know, we really need to understand that these higher 3 chakras form a triage, a kind of a beyond time space delivery system where we're able to connect with source, use our focused intent, and deliver, communicate. And it all goes on above space and time. That's what we do as healers. You know, we're able to shift our center of consciousness around in our beings. And of course, if you're not ready for that kind of thing, it can damage itself. And if anyone ever asks me, what's the key to maintaining all this wonderful stuff? I say humility. Because it's humility which connects us with source. So if we cut off the mains and we think we're doing it, then we become like a cobra and we just end up sucking the living daylights out of everybody else. Excuse me, I've got another little pop-up, haven't I, on my screen? Okay, so let's keep going, because I do want to show you some images. Well, I've got another 20 minutes, haven't I?
Yeah, about 15 maybe. We try to go to about 10 till the hour, maybe about 12 to 15.
Okay. Well, I'm going to jump a little ahead on those because, you know, and we have spoken about the chakras, and now I want to show you some more information. So many maps there are that have given us insights into this gyroscopic technique, this system that we have. And imagine I'm standing on a ball that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, you know, coupled with the sun rushing off to Hercules and God knows what speed. And yet I feel like I'm still. I feel like I'm standing here. I can meditate peacefully. And that's because our chakras are doing all this wonderful kind of gyroscopic jet firing, make us feel like a space station, that we're actually in one space. But I mean, I'm so excited that my colleagues, and many of them today are going to be doing this, going to be sharing this sense of commonality, what all this stuff means. If they all spoke differently, it would be much more difficult to understand. But they're all saying, for example, that you see here where my mouse is, sadness and grief. This is on all of the maps. Our picture is there. Look, sadness and grief. These are on all the different therapy modalities that we're talking to now. They have training manuals, and they have all these types of graphs of where traumas are rooted. So they all agree with each other. It's incredible. They all agree with each other. So we have this important concurrence. And that's why, for example, when I go now with my Biofield viewer, which is this latest way to observe healing live, we're able to relate to those maps and discuss. Oh wow, this guy, look, I'll get to a good one here. It's a good example. So you notice the pooling on this guy's chest and on the back of his back here. Yeah, that's exactly the area where we associate emotionally sadness and grief. So if he's got shields up in this area, I can say to him with 100% knowing, what are you sad about? And so we can start going through that journey of optimization by addressing all the stuff that's been swept under the carpet emotionally, and that has now become so loud and noisy that it's become physical as a disease. This is another case of someone who's got very poor grounding. So I would send this guy barefoot in the park for a couple of days before I would do anything with him, because he's all congested energetically. And as like I said, our technology allows us to see it. Every individual's different. They have their own colors, they have their own patterns, and there's no right or wrong. But obviously, if we see things which could be optimized, we'll guide people to do that. And it's a wonderful tool to bring into the practice. This is just a couple of $1,000s, well, $3. So you can monitor your clients. The clients for the first time can potentially see what you're actually doing, which helps open this channel of trust and helps not just validate the healing process, but it helps the client see what's happening to believe what's happening. You know, it helps the medicine work better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, I'm going to keep tootling on because time isn't our friend, but I did just want to show you, for example, you know, if we start, this guy's standing there for a baseline picture with a Biofield viewer, and I can see all the lovely blue in his throat chakra and various other patterns. And when he starts little sort of meditation, you can see how he's able to transform his own fields. It's quite incredible. And in terms of interpretation of the images, that's really what we do now. I have clients, probably many people listening on your schedule today, around the world who've embraced this technology, and we train them. They'll take pictures of their clients, like this lady, and I'll say, well, why isn't this lady able to speak her truth? You know, what is it that she's shielding? And we'll discover, you know, these wonderful insights which help that healing journey. And everybody's different. So it allows us to be very specific, providing the right solution for each individual. And as you can see, the equipment we use is just a simple light from, you know, hardware store, not rocket science.
Right.
It does give us these wonderful insights. This is rather a difficult to see image. On the bottom you can see it says the phantom leaf experiment. And what happens, we cut the top of a leaf off and you can still see the holographic blueprint of the leaf. In the same way, if someone has phantom pain and a phantom limb, this fellow's lost his arm, but we can still see the energetic arm coming out of the stump. And it's interesting, a bit like a snail. It kind of can come out and go back in again at will, depending on the circumstance. And that's also why some people can have phantom pain, like a really sore finger when there's no finger there, is because the energy is still traumatized. Coming to my end of my discussion now, this is an image of a lady who was passing. Literally, this is the last few hours of her life, and she's very keen to watch. So she came along to one of our training courses in Australia, I think it was. Beautiful soul. She'd been sent home by the hospital. But it's almost like this portal of white light opened behind her, and she, we didn't experience her passing, but she did pass a few hours after the workshop that she'd come in on. His son was one of our students. Yeah, it was amazing, amazing, amazing experience. It certainly made us realize that, you know, we can identify the difference between a healthy person and someone whose health is challenged in an instant. So, you know, if we're in a village or a school or a, you know, we can scan non-invasively a whole community very quickly and then identify the few that have got these warning signs in their fields, which of course it wouldn't even show up in the blood work, but it shows up to us like a clown's red nose, because this is pre-physical symptoms. And you know, meanwhile, we've developed more and more sophisticated versions of our software. Now this is 3D, so we can really see the functionality of the chakras, and going now into delivering science for our peers, using medically established and accepted programs, such as, in this case, Image J, allows us to, you know, fall in line with the university standard, if you like. But it does mean that we can, I'm going to have to jump a little picture. I didn't want to have to do this. Yeah, there. It does mean that we can produce data. So, for example, I have a Biofield viewer image of a young man. I can see he's got some dental issues and a little bit of sadness and some digestive issues, maybe relating to some parental stuff. But I can turn that into a graph, a wave shape. And so each of these wave shapes, this is a healthy wave shape we're looking at on the bottom right. It's a composite. But each disease has its own wave shape. So if I look at that wave shape in a young person and it's the same pattern as someone with diabetes, you see, wow. This is frustrating for me now, because nobody supports this work. If I didn't personally fund this entire institute, we wouldn't have got here. You know, modern medicine would have won. It only would have been a pill. I mean, obviously, they're all our family working in the field, as it were, the healers. In terms of doing the science, very few of us, and we get accused of being all kinds of horrific things. So it is a labor of love, but I totally dedicate my career to the passion I have to serve spirit, because if I didn't have it, you wouldn't be watching these slides right now.
No, it's wonderful work, and I've seen this in person with you as well. It's just fascinating to see your own field and to see other people live.
Yeah.
And how.
Well, we can do the fields on Skype, so if somebody wants me to interpret their image, if they can sit with a white background, like a wall or something, I can do a pretty good interpretation on Skype now. But wow. Remember earlier I was talking about the facets of the diamond. The being is like a diamond, and we can read each facet. Mm-hmm. You know, with biofield imaging, we like to see the whole body. Sometimes it's not convenient to undress, so we can do a complete body reading just from the face. As you can if you're a face reader, we can do a complete body reading just from the tongue or from the feet. Uh-huh. And we can also corroborate that, yes, it is the same issue that we're seeing in all systems, because it's showing up on each facet. And that is very intriguing, because it means we can prove within the own system that, you know, we're barking up the right tree, as it were. Anyway, we're nearly done. Just, you know, my urge to share is there, and get insights into interpreting these images is something that's really exciting for me, that there's been so much progress. And that's, like I say, what I'm doing is, you know, showing people individually how to interpret these images. I'm so nearly done here. I just wanted to show you a couple more things. Obviously, repeatability is very important in science. This is a snapshot of a study we're doing up a mountain in the jungle with such sensitive equipment that we couldn't be on the university campus. It would be disturbed by people's mobile phones or their lights. And this is a redevelopment of the original Valerie Hunt software. We're measuring a rishi, a guru there's chakras, for the Kundalini research project we did. But it is very much ongoing, and that's what I wanted to show you. This is what we're doing now. We're studying the subtle body, the biofields, to share all these fabulous insights, but we really need to collaborate. We need help. You know, it's time. Time for others to step in. And here you can see this very sophisticated results where rishi sort of in a standing state. And then when we ask him to, he can suddenly put huge waves through the different chakras, and we're observing that scientifically. Obviously, it becomes very significant. So lastly, you know, there is the odd instance where we capture a sort of entity with our biofield imaging equipment. And, you know, healers from time to time do come face to face with entities. They're not as common as some people would have you believe, certainly not the sort of interactions that we have. But I think it is important that biofield science allows us to perhaps peer into this area of healthcare, which is so misunderstood. You know, it could be that postnatal depression is actually the process whereby an entity enters the womb in an operating theatre, takes over some of the systems, and that's quite depressing. So if we don't have any awareness for this kind of thing, we only sterilize our stainless steel and our cotton in the hospital, but we don't sterilize space,
Right.
then obviously we're going to carry on with the problems we've got at the moment, which is misdiagnosis, giving people who have got entities pharmaceuticals. You know, it's just it's such a mess at the moment. It's really like a dark age, but the potential with all the work that you and our colleagues are doing in energy medicine does give us hope. And with this in mind, I'm going to take your leave. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you. This is just fascinating, and we really appreciate all the time you put into this. This is just an amazing thing. I'm going to watch several times, I'm sure, because it's such a great overview that just shows so well what's going on. And yeah, thank you for all you're doing. And I did post the link to the page we set up for you that does have links to your website and the Biofield Center, as well as the Energy Medicine Exchange, where you do a lot of work. So
thank you. Well, that's brilliant. And I mean, all I would say is that, you know, I'm really an advocate of self-healing. You know, healers holding space for another to heal themselves. And I think that's why this information is so relevant now, because if we're not grounded, and if we've got too much EMFs and we don't have a sort of balanced diet, we ain't ever going to heal.
right.
You know, we have to take this fundamental responsibility. And hopefully we have good people in our lives that encourage us and inspire us and, you know, to be the best we can. And I certainly think that today's event anchors that for many people. It gives them the actual tools to work from home and change their lives for the better. And that's why I'm here with you, Mike, at 7 in the morning. You know, I'm here with you, brother. I'm inspired by what you're doing. So well done, mate.
Hey, well, thank you. You're always an inspiration to me. So I'm going to thank you again for coming, and I will